No matter how you feel about reggae or cricket, everyone seems to love 10cc. Songs like I'm Not in Love, Rubber Bullets, and Dreadlock Holiday have become classics, as have many other tunes written by 10cc frontman Graham Gouldman. Here is Graham to talk about working with Jeff Beck and the Yardbirds, producing the Ramones, and his thoughts on the current state of songwriting, among many other things. Like musicians all around the world, Graham and 10cc were taken off the road because of COVID. Now they're heading back to New Zealand after an unplanned hiatus from performing. So check it out. You'll love it.
During the pandemic, I found it to be quite a creative time. I did a lot of writing. I recorded an album of instrumental music that I'd always wanted to do. And so I was lucky, in that I had something that I could do at home. And I know a lot of musicians that, everybody was making their lockdown album.
Right. Yes, there's a lot of that around.
a lot of that. There's so much music out there now. But that's fine. I mean, it was the actual act of, actually doing it that was the joy. If
Right.
people enjoyed it when it was actually the album I did was an album of instrumental covers that I'd wanted to do for a while, and I put it out on a Bandcamp, which is a sort of a platform.
Yep.
And the idea was just I didn't want to make any money out of it.
There's no fear of that these days in the music business, is there?
No fear of that. No fear of that. Absolutely right. But the idea was you paid whatever you felt for it. It was worth, and all the money went to the Help Musicians charity. So
fantastic.
But I'd already had the pleasure out of it by actually making it. And
I wish I. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's called because it's an instrumental album. It's called No Words Today.
As opposed to No Milk Today, right?
Got it.
Very good. So I'm going to have to go check that out because I was unaware of its existence, which is my fault, not yours.
I'm not surprised.
Give me a hint as to some of the songs you chose to cover, because being a songwriter yourself, my God.
I do a version of The Folks Who Live on the Hill, Somewhere, Misty,
the classics.
Sunrise, Sunset, Mother Nature's Son.
Oh, right.
But a few.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I have to definitely check it out because I was listening to the album you did. There's a song called Standing Next to Me, which is you think, and you made a bunch of references to Act Naturally and Ringo and the Beatles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I got a call from Mr. Hart, said, would you like to be a part of something great? To join a band with Ringo Starr, bring along your bass guitar and don't be late. So what was there to say? I soon was on my way, and on that very night I met the man who was a major part, was at the very start of where it all began.
Yeah, that was written about my time working with Ringo and the All-Star Band.
Right. That must have been fun.
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I loved it.
Because I realized you were pretty much a teenager when the Beatles broke in like 63 and 64. So I can't imagine, because I was maybe 10 or 11 at the time. So I remember how I felt about it. But you being so close to it, what did that do to you?
It did everything to me. Everything in my musical life. It changed me. Up to that time, also the music that I was listening to before that, sort of late 50s music coming out of America, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers, Eddie Cochran, Chuck Berry, all those artists. And then through the sort of skiffle era in the UK, Cliff Richard and the Shadows were very influential. And then, but the Beatles were the thing that inspired me and many others to actually start writing songs.
Right. Because that's the thing. I mean, somebody came up to me and asked me the other day, Beatles or Stones, Beatles or Stones. And of course, I love them both. But if you're going to have to say one's better than the other, you got to go with the Beatles just because of the songwriting. That's the thing that sets them apart.
Well, I agree, but it did become a thing, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
You're only allowed to like one of them. But of course, they both made great records. But the Beatles were, for me, miles ahead of anybody.
Now, speaking of songwriting, we just lost Burt Bacharach a little while ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's a great song, amazing songs. And of course, part of the thing that they talk about with him is his use of different time signatures and his melodies. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, the same could be said for you. And songs like Heart Full of Soul and Bus Stop, and those had similar things. So did you have any thoughts about Burt, and how did he affect you, or did you have any interactions with him?
Well, Burt and Hal David are in my my top 5 songwriting influences.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. When I first heard Anyone Who Had a Heart, I think that was the first Bacharach and David song I heard.
Uh-huh.
That was a complete revelation to me. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The time signature, the chord changes, his use of major sevenths. I started like getting obsessed with that. And you know, I because he passed away recently, I've sort of gone down the Burt Bacharach rabbit hole, and you know, listened to so many of his great songs that he and Hal David wrote. Just fantastic, amazing canon of work.
Yeah. And the other person who's no longer with us is Jeff Beck, which of course he just joined the Yardbirds and did Heart Full of Soul, and
that's right. Yes,
that's pretty major.
Yeah, pretty major. And yeah, I was very proud to have an association with him. He also recorded a song that I wrote called Tallyman, which actually came out sometime after Hi Ho Silver Lining, which was a massive hit, and Tallyman was not.
Right.
But still,
you can't win them all.
Yeah, you can't win them all. Just happy that he recorded it, and you know, our names are linked in some way.
Yeah, because I mean, he was a unique guitar player, and I'm wondering, as a songwriter, do you think about how these songs are going to be translated, especially by people who have their own voice with their instruments or whatever?
Yes, I do. I mean, I assume that they're going to do them pretty much as I wrote them or did the demo. Actually, with Tallyman, it's a good example of Jeff actually changed it quite a bit. He put on a new introduction on it. But I love the record, it was great. But some songs, people are very faithful to the original demos that I make, and other times they're not. But you know, whatever, it's their record, not mine.
Right. Now, also on the songwriting front, Bonnie Raitt just won the Grammy for the best song, and there was quite a bit being made about how her age, and B, the fact that she was the only one in the group that was the sole songwriter, whereas these days you look at the credits and you got, like, you know, you'd spend the rest of the day reading them, and usually Max Martin's in there somewhere, and you know, so
Max Martin's always in there. Yeah.
So do you have an opinion about the state of songwriting these days with that in mind?
Well, the thing is, I think what will happen is the songs seem to be more temporary now. You know, they don't last for as long. I don't think, you know, I mean, we've got songs that I've been associated with, written or co-written, that are still being played after, you know, like 50 odd years.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And a lot of the songs today, I don't think will be. And you could say, well, so what? Who cares?
Well,
you know, does it matter in the big picture? I mean, I think for a songwriter, it's a very nice feeling to think that there's some sort of legacy involved in your music and what you're going to eventually leave behind. Whereas I don't think that's so apparent in what's being written today. However, you know, there's always good stuff around, even if you don't know 90% of the artists that are on it. But there is something kind of soulless about the idea of having so many people contribute. Of course, you don't know what they did contribute. Someone might have just contributed a
line,
a particular rhythm, or a sample of a guitar. So we don't really know. But because the records are kind of cobbled together in a way, I don't mean that as a derogatory term.
Sure, yeah.
There is an art to it, I mean, you hear things, I hear things, I go, wow, that's fantastic, and I don't know how it's made. Do I need to know how it's made? All I know is that it's great.
Yep. And speaking of legacy, I mean, I can, but I won't. For your sake, I could probably sing every word of Bus Stop right now. And it came out when I was 11 years old, and probably my kids can too, because they heard me playing it around the house so much. So there's something to be said for that, and
it's a nice thought for me to think your kids are singing it, right? So we've never met,
right.
There's something about that.
Right. So when you got back on the road after the COVID break, did that change anything for you about how you approached what you were doing?
I think it affected all musicians. I think we really appreciated, I certainly did, appreciated how lucky I was to be able to do it. It was wonderful to be able to just be back with the boys again, and the joy of, like, the audiences were so happy to be back together with each other, and being able to share, the music again. I'm still feeling that a little bit.
I think it's still out there, because I mean, I don't know about everywhere else. In New Zealand, it's been weird because we're kind of isolated anyway down here, and we were locked down. But then we had these other major weather-related things that kind of had us locked down again and again. So every time we come out of it, the release is the live music thing, it feels like. Yeah,
and it's so important to people to be together, collectively, and witnessing or being part of an audience. It's great.
So what keeps you on the road? I mean, you can't be doing it for money, because I mean, you got to be making a couple of bucks on royalties. So.
No, I do it because you're right, I don't have to do it, but I do it because I love doing it. And in my work life, I'm lucky because the three things that I do: writing songs, recording, and playing live. Whatever I'm doing, I always think, well, this is the best thing I can do.
Right.
So I feel very, very, I know I'm very fortunate in that. And I just love it. I like the being on the road. My wife is very understanding of me being on the road, and the boys I work with are just fantastic. We're good friends. We have a lot of fun, and we're very serious also at the same time, though, about what we do. Right.
And I mean, you're doing the Ultimate Hits tour now, which, I mean, let's face it, every tour you've been is an Ultimate Hits tour. I've seen a couple times already. So that's great. But how do you keep it fresh for yourself and the rest of the band doing those songs?
I think we always think of, first of all, there's a different audience every night.
Right.
So there's a slightly different vibe about the evening. And it just, I don't know, the songs are great to play. They're quite complex, so you need to be on your game.
Yep.
You can't sort of relax. It ain't rhythm and blues. And I always think of myself as being in the audience. Like, what am I looking at? What am I expecting? And we do enjoy playing together, and that transmits to the audience. I think they kind of feel that as well.
Interesting.
Now, that's important.
One of the things you do that doesn't get talked about so much, you've produced a few records, and I have one of them here with me. The Ramones.
Oh, right. Yeah, Pleasant Dreams. Yeah.
And I love the Ramones and seen them many thousands of times, it feels like. But
have you?
Yeah. I was growing up in upstate New York and went to the CBGBs and saw them and the whole bit.
Oh, wow. You were there. Okay.
I was there. So and I remember interviewing Joey and Johnny just as they were about to be produced by Phil Spector. And they were kind of basing everything on that because they were desperate to have a hit. And of course, that didn't really happen for them. So this was a couple of years after that. I'm wondering what kind of experience that was working with them.
We want the world and we want it now. We're going to take it anyhow. We want the airwaves. That's right. We want the airwaves. That's right. We want the airwaves, baby.
surprising, I have to say. First of all, I was surprised, why me?
Right.
But their connection with me, they said, was nothing to do with 10cc, but to do with the British invasion.
That's what I figured. Yeah, yeah, because they love that stuff.
That's what it was. But even then, I wasn't kind of convinced that it was going to work. And I said, look, you know, for both our sakes, let's like just maybe record 2 or 3 tracks and see how it goes.
Right.
And initially, everything, in fact, during the whole recording, everybody seemed very happy with it.
Right.
And particularly Joey, who I loved. He was a wonderful character.
Yeah.
I know that Johnny wasn't that enamored of the album. He thought it was too clean and poppy.
Right.
But during the time we were recording, he seemed fine. But
Right.
But there you go. But I, you know, it's one of those things that it was an odd thing for me to do, but I tend to say yes, and sometimes I shouldn't say yes. But I'm really glad that I did that album.
And of course, that song, speaking of Johnny, has the KKK took my baby away.
Yeah,
which is kind of
I know. What a title, eh?
and supposedly that was Joey's kind of reaction to Johnny taking his girlfriend.
Yes, that's right. But I have to say, they were easy to work with.
Right.
They were punctual, you know. I mean, they were very professional. Look, what can I say?
Yep. Yeah, it's a shame they just never got that radio hit that kind of, you know, Patti Smith broke through because the night, and Blondie did it, and you know.
But there's no T-shirt as popular as the Ramones T-shirt.
There you go.
Yeah. I've seen it all over the. Oh, there you go. All over the world.
Yeah. Very good. So, so you've written all these songs during lockdown. You're still writing. What are you gonna? What are you releasing next? What have you got planned up? What do you got up?
Okay. Well, I'm working on a new solo album at the moment.
Right.
That should be released towards the end of the year. Last year, I worked with. I wrote a song called "Floating in Heaven," which was about the James Webb Space Telescope.
Right.
And because I'd started following its progress on the NASA website, and kind of fell in love with the telescope, if you can fall in love with the telescope, and wrote a song about it. I played it to the guy, Andrew, at my record company, and he said, the song is absolutely brilliant. But he said, wouldn't it be great if you could get someone like Brian May from Queen to play on it? Because
why not?
Not only is he a brilliant guitarist, he's an astronomer and an astrophysicist.
Oh, there you go.
I sent it to, there's a good idea. Thought that's a brilliant idea. All we need now is for Brian to like it. Anyway, I sent it to him. He said, I love this song. And he plays guitar on it. He sings backing vocals, and he was very involved in the production of it as well.
It's time for me to say goodbye and search for pastures new. Our future lies above the clouds, beyond the sky so blue. I've never seen the moon so white. I've never seen the sun so bright. I'm floating in heaven, I'm so high.
So that's actually going to be the lead track on the album.
It reminds me, I'm a big Mott the Hoople Ian Hunter fan, and
Okay.
Ian's like 83 years old now, and he's got an album coming out next month, and he's got like everybody playing on it. You know, it's like all star. Probably Brian May's on it. I don't know yet, but it just
well,
seems
everybody would, yeah. Homage to him.
Absolutely. But it's interesting, as you're what, you're in your mid 70s, I think, right?
Yes.
So does age do you think about how much longer, why am I doing, what's motivating me now as opposed to when I was 20 years old?
I know what's motivating me. What always my motivation hasn't changed since I was a teenager. I just love playing music and being involved in music. It's my beside my family, it's my life.
Right.
And I think that I always say I won't stop, but I'll be stopped.
Gotcha.
That's simple as that.
I think everybody gets that option.
Yeah, I mean, why would I stop?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play golf. I
Right.
haven't got any, in my work life, that's all I do. And in my social life, well, I have a social life, obviously, but it's a balance between between love and work, which
Right.
actually happens to be the title of my previous album before my last album.
Ah, okay. And the last one was what? Modesty Forbids?
Modesty Forbids, yeah.
Yeah. That's the one with the Ringo on it. Yeah. Okay, one last question. You're a bass player as well. So
I am.
how does the bass relate to what else you do? Do you think in terms of bass lines when you're writing? Does that where it starts, where it ends, or is it just another thing that you do?
I've always been a sort of bass player that followed sort of McCartney, James Jamerson, melodic bass players.
Yeah.
And I want the bass to not take over, just to enhance and inform what's going on. So you might not even be aware of what the bass is doing, but it's kind of gently behind the scenes, making everything, well, a lot of things happen.
Yeah.
And like if you listen to the bass part on Floating in Heaven, it's really simple, but I think you've got to, but it really enhances what's going on. And that's the job of the bass player.
Very
And
good.
the bass player and the drummer, of course, are the people that keep everything rock solid.
Yep.
Whereas
Anchored.
the lead guitarist can screw up, he can do what he wants, but the bass and the drums have got to be right there.
Yep. Very good. All righty. Well, I can't wait to see you guys when you get here in June.
Okay.
It'll be very exciting. You're doing a bunch of dates throughout the country, so everybody will get a chance to see you.
We're busy boys. Very nice talking to you.
You too. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.